Hey guys. This is part 4 of What If Naruto Was Feared and Respected. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 15. Dark Necessities. 2 bowls of miso ramen, please. Kuratsuchi's voice rang throughout the cheerful clamor of the bustling patrons around the ramen stand. Naruto popped his head out from behind the back curtain and his white chef hat tilted off to the side. Coming right up. Naruto grinned as he took some more fresh noodles from the nice pile that Mitsui, wearing her own white hat, had been meticulously working on for the last few hours. The little girl knew she did not need to help, but she said she liked making the noodles. Naruto grabbed some miso stock from the cupboard next to him and added it to the boiling pot of broth. He put the noodles into a separate pot of boiling water. Once everything looked good and hot, Naruto mixed it all together and poured the delicious concoction into 2 bowls. He then added some fish dumplings and vegetables on the tops of the bowls. He finished his immaculate display with an egg on both servings. He put both bowls on the counter just outside the curtain. 2 bowls of miso ramen. Kuratsuchi, garbed in a white apron, came over to pick up the order. She had refused to wear a hat. Thanks, Naruto. Can you get me 1 bowl of tonkatsu ramen, please? Naruto gave her a thumbs up and was already reaching for another handful of noodles. You got it. Kuratsuchi smiled and took the 2 bowls of ramen over to the customers. She placed the bowls on the dining counter, and the 2 patrons thanked her for the food. Thank you. You guys make the best ramen in all of Kumo. Kuratsuchi waved off their compliment, but could not help but grin at their sincerity. Thanks, guys. I'll be sure to let the chef know. Enjoy your meal. She knew Naruto had probably already heard the compliment, though. The man's ears were acute in their functioning. She had been right. Naruto felt warmed by the generous compliment, and yelled towards the owner, who was in the back, catering to the boiling process of the bones. They like it, Ji-chan. The old owner let out a hearty laugh and grinned at the tall blonde that had helped him considerably. Of course they do, my boy. You've learned from the best, after all. Naruto was eternally grateful for the esteemed tutelage of the elderly owner. He had learned the basic properties of how to make ramen rather quickly and greatly enjoyed it. When the Hokage had told Naruto he and his companions would receive pay by aiding an old man's ramen stand, the war hero had been thrilled by the proposition. For the last few months, the 2 shinobi and Mitsui had made ramen. Obviously, this was not the only event they had participated in. A few hours later, with the late winter sun retreating behind the mountains, Naruto called out to the owner. He had just finished putting the broth on simmer, so the leftovers could be used for the next day. Hey, Ji-chan! We free to go? Octopops is waiting for us. The owner chuckled and showed him a gaped smile. Get out of here, young man. Don't push yourself too far this time. I want you bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for tomorrow. Naruto grinned broadly and put an exhausted Mitsui on his shoulders. They met Kuratsuchi outside of the ramen stand. She smiled wryly and followed after the poised figure that was Naruto. Honestly, don't you think we train too much, considering we also work a ton, Naruto? Naruto thought about that for a moment. Probably, but I enjoy it way too much. You 2 can sit this one out if you need to. He was enthralled by the way Kuratsuchi's smile morphed to be a little wicked. Who said that I wasn't going to train? She was really good at making his heart feel like an artificial pump that had problems keeping up with the rest of his body. The trio eventually reached their designated area they used for training, located on the outskirts of the village. Because it was usually too cold to train outside during the night this time of year, the Hokage had allowed them to use the expansive cave networks that were interwoven throughout the nearby mountains. There were multiple channels of magma that flowed throughout the mountains, allowing the caves to reach a comfortable level of warmth. There was specifically one enormous cave that was easily accessible on the edge of the cliffs they typically used to train in. Naruto and Killer Bee were not able to go all out when they were in the cave because they would quickly demolish the mountain that way. Even when they occasionally trained outside, they still had to be careful so they did not harm the nearby village. Naruto's control had grown over the years anyways, so it was not arduous to hold back in his case. When the trio entered the immense natural chamber, they saw Killer Bee meditating in the center of the cave floor. Killer Bee's voice echoed throughout the cave as he moved from his motionless state. The dark-skinned Jinchuriki's hair had grown over the years, and so did his build. His frame was wider and more muscular, but his smile whenever he saw Naruto had not changed one bit. Yo, Naruto! You finished with your ramen rain and ready to go all out and train? Naruto gently dropped Mitsui to her feet, and Naruto took a fighting stance with an eager face plastered on his mug. You know it, Octopops. Kuratsuchi barely had time to get herself and Mitsui out of the way before the sound of Killer Bee's signature whistle-like cry resonated around the natural walls. Killer Bee had launched a dynamic kick towards Naruto from across the cave and the blonde deflected it with a strong block. Naruto had already entered Kurama Chakra mode and quickly followed suit by throwing a punch at his old friend. From the edge of the cave, Kuratsuchi and Mitsui had a great view of the fight with a glassy pool of water next to them. Alright, Mitsui. Are you sure you want to train tonight? You look like you're really tired. We can train tomorrow morning before work if you want. Mitsui turned her chilled eyes over to the image of a golden Naruto brushing off a strong uppercut. His eyes were lit with passion and his entire essence screamed exhilaration. Mitsui was captivated by him. No, that's okay, Kurone. I want to become strong like Naru and I. Can we do that water thing again, please? Kuratsuchi should not have been surprised. That blonde fool was just too inspirational. Fine, focus your chakra to your fingertips then. Kuratsuchi had decided to help Mitsui on her water nature a few weeks back. Naruto would give her individual lessons for her wind nature and Kuratsuchi would help with the other respectfully. Killer Bee would occasionally help Mitsui out too with her water affinity and in improving her taijutsu. By making both of her chakra affinities as strong as possible, the end goal was that her skill of the ice release would increase substantially. At this point, Mitsui was capable of making a thin sheet of ice on the top of water, but that was the limit of her abilities. She was improving every day, nevertheless. Mitsui closed her eyes and sensed the water in front of her. She had done this a few times before, but today was different. Today she would see what she could do. She felt the energy in the water's fluid movements and flowed with it. Water morphed to its surroundings and slid with the current. Even when it seemed stagnant, water moved. Mitsui needed to move with it too. First, there was a state of submission where she became one with the water. When she reached that point, she pushed and willed it to move. She controlled the immense power of the moving force that was water. She felt the uprising surge in her fingertips and knew the water had no choice but to submit. She opened her eyes and saw a column of water rise from the surface of the pool. It was like a fountain with the top water cascading down and a current flowing upwards into it. Kuratsuchi knelt down to Mitsui's height and put her hand on the child's shoulder. Excellent, Mitsui. Now hold it. This time we're going to try something new. When you feel you've grown incredibly intimate with the feeling of the water, let it burst. Mitsui nodded and concentrated. She tried to grow familiar with the peculiar feeling. It was like she was merely pushing the water, but she knew if she could shove it, the water would agree with the decision. Water was so submissive, she thought. No, that was not right. On second thought, it was simply humble in its strength. It knew it could decimate the world if it wished, but it loved life too much to do that. It had a deep anger to it, in spite of its normally tranquil nature. Mitsui searched for that underlying rancor. When she saw it, she was reminded of a deep, mysterious abyss that held more pressure than was conceivable. She clutched its core and tried to understand it. As its density surrounded her, she let it embrace her. Finally, after the core knew her, she shoved it away. A great blast of water shot up from the pool and skyrocketed towards the cave ceiling. The ceiling was over 100 meters above the ground and the powerful fountain was just short of it. Mitsui held its force in place. Kuratsuchi was beyond impressed. She had predicted the girl to be able to shoot maybe several meters or so, but the young child had greatly surpassed her expectations. She shook her head in disbelief. Naruto had said Mitsui had amazing potential. Kuratsuchi had not seen it until now. Who knows what the little girl was capable of? From across the cave, Naruto smiled as he marveled at the splendor of the fountain. It's about time, Naruto mused. Killer Bee stopped his onslaught and turned to bear witness to the intense spout of water. The older male's expression was stoic, but Naruto knew he was mesmerized. During the spar, Naruto had been paying close attention to Mitsui's chakra. It had been calm and curious as it had explored the water-natured chakra. Once she had connected with the water's chakra and understood its essence, she had controlled it. Naruto felt proud of her, and his smile fully became a grin. Mitsui finally felt weary from her hold and released the water. The fountain quickly dissipated and the child felt lightheaded. Kuratsuchi held her and nuzzled her head against Mitsui's cheek in an excited and loving manner. That was amazing, sweetie. I can't believe you just did that. That was some high-level use of your abilities. Soon you will be able to do that without needing a water source. Mitsui gave her teacher a drained smile. Good. I can't wait, Kurone. I feel really weak now, though. Kuratsuchi let out an embarrassed laugh and picked the girl up. All right, honey. Despite Mitsui's obvious fatigue, Kuratsuchi could see the joy in her crystallized eyes. Kuratsuchi's love for the little girl was growing every day. She had a special connection with her, and felt like a big sister. No, that was not correct, she felt more like a mother figure for the child. Thankfully, Kuratsuchi had been correct in her assumptions about Mitsui. The girl had been helping her with her doubts and hesitation indirectly. The shadow had little power when she was interacting with the little girl. Of course, the shadow was still present, and was against ever leaving her. Still, it was nice being with someone that distracted her from the pain. Kuratsuchi knew she needed to speak about her problems with someone, and soon. She was just so hesitant. Kuratsuchi felt some cold humor from that thought. Hesitation was the problem after all. She turned around and yelled across the cave at the two Jinchuriki. Let's call it a night, boys, Naruto called back. Okay. Naruto stopped the flow of Kurama's chakra and returned to his normal state. I know that wasn't much of a spar, Octopops, but you good? Killer Bee brought his hand out in the form of a fist. Hey yo! Get the girls to bed, Naruto. Naruto bumped his fist into his good friends and smiled brightly. See you tomorrow, Octopops. With that, Naruto ran after the retreating figure of Kuratsuchi carrying a fatigued Mitsui. The trio left the cave and returned to their temporary lodgings in the Kumo headquarters. When they reached their rooms, Kuratsuchi took Mitsui to bed and Naruto ran to his pile of papers and scrolls he had not bothered to organize. He grabbed a blank scroll and began to write a long overdue report to Kakashi. He included the part about Mitsui's recent development, and about the ever-present rift between him and Kuratsuchi. Naruto had almost finished his report when he heard a knock at his door. He opened the door to find Kuratsuchi, who appeared to be mentally debating something. Naruto lifted an eyebrow and flashed a curious grin. Well, hello? He added a goofy, high-class tone to his voice that made the kunoichi roll her eyes off impulse. All of a sudden, her face changed and it seemed she was focused on what was in front of her. I want to talk to you about something. Kuratsuchi's invitation hung in the air for a moment. Naruto's expression became tender, and his smile was sincere. Well, it's still relatively early in the night. Care to take a walk with me, then? Kuratsuchi visibly agreed, and the two shinobi left the great building. The village of Kumo had a healthy nightlife that established a positive and bright atmosphere around its warm area. Shinobi and civilians alike were roaming around, enjoying the winter night. It was just late enough in the season to where the cold was starting to vanish away and the promise of a pleasant spring was on the horizon. Naruto and Kuratsuchi turned a corner on the busy main path and found a much quieter pathway to saunter through. As the two shinobi ambled along, Naruto broke the fresh silence. So, what did you need to talk about? Kuratsuchi's eyelids lowered and she looked down at her shifting feet. It's something that's been on my mind for a long time. Her jaw suddenly stiffened and the pink in her eyes seemed to brighten. I have a lot of grief, Naruto. I've been dealing with a lot of pain recently, and I realize that just bottling up isn't going to help me. I need to talk about it. Of course, Naruto had known about the pain for a few months now, but it was not his turn to speak yet. He simply concentrated on Kuratsuchi's words and let her talk. Something happened before we met in Kusa. Something horrible. Naruto arched his neck so he could lean closer. This was it, he thought. He was finally going to know what had been holding her back from what she could be. She had been so different from the woman in AIM, and he had wanted to know why for so long. The anticipation was agonizing for him. Kuratsuchi was furthering the torment by pausing in her speech. The silence was protracted and Naruto had to break it. What happened? Kuratsuchi took a moment to calm herself with a deep breath and spoke again. On my way to Kusa, I met a woman on the path. Kuratsuchi told Naruto about the favor the woman had given her, the burn house, the mountain tunnels, the gang, the sexual assault, the rage and massacre preceding it, and the suicide. She did not leave anything out, in relation to the events anyways. She wanted to talk about the result of the tragedy and the shadow, but its essence strengthened at the thought, and coerced her into saying nothing about it. After Kuratsuchi had finished the story, she moved her eyes up to Naruto to see a sorry sight. There was pain there. The blue in his eyes was a cold shade and it reflected her sorrow respectfully. Kuratsuchi could not believe this man. His sympathy was greater than any other person's that she had ever known. Naruto stopped in his tracks and grabbed her hand. She felt her blood rush to her face, and she was taken aback by his sudden gesture. Thank you, Kuratsuchi. I'm so touched that you would trust me with this information. Kuratsuchi's surprise grew to even greater heights. She had been wrong. It was not sympathy the blonde possessed but empathy. He was grateful by the fact that she would even tell him all of that, and she could not imagine a better person to tell her woes to. This man understood pain better than she had thought. Naruto was not a man to be underestimated and was surely full of surprises, but she knew that already. Somehow though, knowing still did not change anything. Her affection for him was speeding up, and Kuratsuchi's mind could not keep up with it all. Well, of course, hero. Who else would I tell? Naruto ignored the rhetorical question and straightened his back to stand at his full height. He stood over her, and she could feel his presence, making her blood go into overtime. Naruto's eyebrows scrunched slightly in thought. Why did you hesitate when the girl was about to harm herself? Naruto did not mean to rush into the most difficult question so quickly, but he was not really a guy to beat around the bush, at least innately. When he was around people he trusted and loved, it was really easy for him to resort back to his former ways. Kuratsuchi understood that much, so she did not reprimand his sense of tact on the subject. Still, it did not make the question any easier to swallow. I don't know, Naruto. She was not lying because if she knew the answer to that question, the shadow would cease to exist. She did not know how she knew that, but she understood they were probably connected. She felt Naruto knew that too, hence the question. But I want to. Naruto flicked his eyes away from her for a moment. Luckily, I know how you can find out. Kuratsuchi's hope rose. Really? How? She did not bother to hide her eagerness. She had waited too long for this. You were there before, actually. Do you remember that island turtle that I and Killer Bee used to hide from the Akatsuki during the war? Kuratsuchi nodded. She remembered that was the day Kabuto had outsmarted her. She was not keen on remembering her failures, but that was why she was in her current predicament, it would seem. How could I forget? I had to escort that giant creature back to Kumo's coast after you left. I hear they're still mad about you breaking that barrier. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't really have a choice on the matter. Anyways, on the back of that turtle is an ancient waterfall that can transport a person into their mind. It's similar to a mirror and shows a person their true self. A person can directly face their mind and its deepest workings. I used it once and I was changed forever after it. I think it would be best if you went yourself and found out the answer to your questions. He paused for a moment as if the next part was optional information. However, I promise you that it won't be easy. Are you interested? Kuratsuchi had heard rumors of the fabled waterfall before, but she did not know it actually existed. She would be lying if she said she was not interested in the proposal, but she was more frightened than anything else. Directly facing the shadow would be strenuous, but she realized it was necessary. She wanted to move on. Life was moving forward and she needed to as well. All right. When can we leave? Naruto smiled with his eyebrows lowered. As soon as Genbu is close to Kumo's shore, which shouldn't be long from now. I can talk to A in the morning and figure out when exactly we can reach it. Naruto paused for a moment, and then thought of something. So, why did you decide to tell me all of this now? Kuratsuchi was getting really annoyed with the constant blood rushing to her face. She was a grown woman, but the blonde was extremely talented at making her feeling flustered. She never knew a man like him, and she supposed that was a good thing. After all, he did not like liars. I think it was Mitsui, Kuratsuchi said. That girl kind of inspires me. Naruto nodded knowingly. He understood that very well. He thought inspiration was one of the most beautiful forces in the world. It had more power than many other processes like it. Indeed. She's a miraculous little girl. Kuratsuchi smiled affectionately up at him. You're not too bad yourself, hero. Her eyes glazed over with emotion, and the rosiness in them shined through. Thank you, Naruto. The truth is that there's another reason why I wanted to tell you all of this and try to settle it out. I want to grow closer to you, Naruto. My pain won't let me do that, though. That's why I want to conquer it. Naruto's eyes widened and he felt the tip of his nose heat up. It did not take long for that heat to cover the rest of his face. And why would you want to do that? Because I love you. She almost said those waiting words. They were there, on the edge and eager to jump towards the light that was Naruto. The words did not want to come though. They were too familiar with the shadowy reaches behind them. The shadow sent its icy fingers and clutched the words. Kuratsuchi could not say them. The wind came in that moment and cut through her thick jacket. She felt so cold. The warm light was right there in front of her, but she did not deserve it. She was a fool for thinking that merely talking about her problems could solve everything. Doing that would undermine the potency of the situation. The shadow was much too strong for that. In the end, Kuratsuchi could only utter, because you're a good person. It was not a lie, just not the complete truth. Naruto seemed to be satisfied by that answer. The walk back to the headquarters was filled with light conversation and both parties were content with that. However, for Naruto, there was an underlying thought in the back of his mind as he chatted with Kuratsuchi that night. Right before she had said her reason behind her words, Naruto had seen she was concealing something. Hopefully, the falls of truth would fix all of that, but his impatience was strong in that moment. He wanted to know her real reason because he had a hunch he could relate. The Raikage told Naruto the next morning that Genbu was scheduled to be close to the coast by the end of the week. Naruto was determined to set out straight away and did not delay. With that, Naruto and the girls started to pack up their belongings. Naruto arrived late that same morning to the ramen stand and found the old man to be perturbed by his tardiness. When Naruto told him they would leave soon for the coast, the old man was distraught. Naruto had tried to be gentle in his words, but the man was overcome with grief. Nevertheless, the owner seemed to understand. Naruto said his goodbyes and told him the girls would do the same before they left. Killer Bee had insisted he would accompany Naruto and the others to Genbu. He missed Moto and wanted to be with Naruto for a little while longer. There had been little resistance to that proposition, even from A, and it was decided unanimously. Darui and Mabui were both understanding of the trio's leaving but were not happy about it. The Raikage was not audibly bothered by the action, but Naruto could tell he was going to have a tough time saying goodbye. The twitch in his upper lip was a testament to that. All of the Kumo residents knew their esteemed guests had to leave eventually. They simply did not want to cope with it just yet. The group of 4 left at high noon a few days later. The promise of spring was in the air that day. It would not be long before its cheery air would sweep through the land. The birds could feel it too as they flew happily over the group gathered at the village's main gate. Most of Kumo's residents were there to see the group off. There were not many complaints about that. The Raikage put a lot of force into the one-armed hug he gave Naruto before he left. It was so uncharacteristic of the village leader that many of the onlookers watched with startled expressions. Darui put his hand on Naruto's shoulder and told him he would hopefully be the Raikage the next time they met. Mabui bowed respectfully to all 4 of the departing and wished them safe travels. The old ramen stand owner was there too. Mitsui went up to him and kissed him on the cheek. The elderly man broke after that and wept in front of all of them. After everyone gave their farewells, illustrated their best wishes, exchanged tears, and said what they did not entirely mean, the group of 4 left Kumo. In spite of the bittersweet vibes of the departure, the group's peregrination towards the coast was light and airy. The journey down the mountain was comprised of Killer Bee's rapping, Kuratsuchi's annoyance, and Naruto's cheery attitude. They had managed to reach the forested foothills of the mountains by nightfall and had set up camp before the moon was out. Killer Bee said they could pass through the alpine-covered foothills and reach the ocean by noon tomorrow. The group of 4 had a hearty supper and went to bed early in order to move out when it was dawn. Unfortunately, Naruto had a hard time sleeping. His mind was fixated on too many things and he did not even know where to start in trying to organize it all. Killer Bee's raucous snoring was not helping either. Finally, Naruto left his sleeping bag and went to find a quiet spot away from the campsite. A few hundred meters away from everyone, there was a cozy meadow that Naruto found to be quite satisfactory. The blonde Jinchuriki allowed himself to calm down and ponder all that was on his mind. Kuratsuchi's honesty was the one that seemed to be prevailing amid the other worthy matters bouncing around his brain. She had finally poured out all that had been tormenting her for so long and Naruto was ever grateful for that. He could not deny his love for her. The way her eyes shined as she spoke about tough matters and the process she would undergo when Mitsui would surpass both their expectations, all made Naruto want to reach out to her. He wanted to run his fingers through her ebony locks and tell her it was all going to be all right. He loved her delicate words and saucy retorts. He yearned for her touch and her provoking thoughts to be whispered to him. When Naruto heard soft footsteps and a familiar breathing pattern, he also realized how much he loved Kuratsuchi's impeccable timing. Naruto suddenly looked up and saw the dark-haired beauty leaning against an evergreen on the edge of the tiny meadow. She smiled sweetly and gracefully swept her feet over to him. "Hello, hero," she said as she plopped down in front of him. Naruto fixed his eyes fully on her. "You didn't even try to hide your movements. You're getting complacent, young lady." Kuratsuchi pretended she did not hear him. Instead she shivered. "Shit, it's cold out here." She rubbed her arms to warm up the smooth skin. "So, you couldn't sleep, hero?" "No, too much on my mind." "You." Kuratsuchi grinned and she put her tongue between her teeth for a moment. Her antics were not lessening his feelings for her, whatsoever. Not with B's snoring. Naruto was interested in the fact that Kuratsuchi seemed to be in a livelier mood than usual. Maybe talking about her problems the day before had helped. Naruto was uncertain but thankful for that much. Her eyes rested on him, and her mouth became more neutral. So, what's on your mind then? Naruto could not accurately answer that inquiry, so he dodged it with a half-truth. What you said yesterday really resonated with me, Kuratsuchi. Kuratsuchi straightened her sitting posture and narrowed her eyes, trying to read him. You've experienced your own pain, haven't you? A Jinchuriki's life has never been an easy one. Naruto shook his head and smiled softly. Actually, I dealt with that stuff long ago. The loved ones who I have lost, on the other hand, is still hard to remember sometimes. Kuratsuchi was made somber by that remark. She brushed aside her bangs and gave Naruto's words some thought. I can imagine. You sure have formed a lot of relationships in your lifetime, huh? Naruto smirked slightly. All of this questioning from you is different, Kuratsuchi. It's a little unlike you. Kuratsuchi's brow lowered a bit. And you know all about me, don't you, hero? I'm just being fair is all. I poured my heart out yesterday, so today is your turn. Naruto rested his chin in one of his hands and smiled wryly. Your chivalry is much appreciated, my dear, Kuratsuchi laughed. But seriously, you are a remarkable character for making so many friends. Naruto nodded. I just care about them, and want what is best for them. So you love them? Yes. Do you care about me? Naruto wondered if that was a trap, and if it was, what did that mean? Were her intentions to explore his feelings for her? He surmised it was better to use honesty when dealing with a trap. Of course I do. Why? Naruto had not been expecting that question, especially the way she looked at him when she said it. It was a look that was begging for an answer, a much-needed answer. The light vibe had left, and the serious one nestled itself between the two shinobi. Naruto tried to think on what would be the best response. He decided on the truth. Because you're there for me. I feel like you're not going anywhere. What would happen if I did? Naruto could tell that was not a jest. It was an honest question. I wouldn't be alright, let me say that. Because you care about me? Yes, because Naruto was suddenly cut off by Kuratsuchi's arms. She had leaned forward and embraced him. The brisk evening warmed up as she held him. It was an amazing feeling, and while he was appreciative, he was also really startled. Kuratsuchi put her mouth close to his ear and whispered, "Thank you, Naruto. I care about you too." All of a sudden, he felt something wet on his neck and he realized she was crying. Once Naruto felt the shock had died down, he slowly took his own arms and wrapped them around her. He brought her close and let her pour out what had been bottled up for so long. He had no idea what she was going through. It was wrong to ever compare his pain to hers, and he would not dare to attempt it. He just let her cry and held her. They both really needed the hug, after all. In that tender moment, Naruto felt her whispered words transcend his worries. They became a solid thing and fed his hungry soul. They were not all that he needed from her, but he realized it was not about what he took. Love was not about taking. It was about giving to the one that only deserved what was best for them. Naruto wondered if he was what was best for Kuratsuchi. He knew he was a liar and an incorrigible fool, but he longed, more than absolutely anything, for that be true. Chapter 16. Wincing the night away. Kuratsuchi had desperately wanted the next day to be calm and not awkward in the least. Considering she had suddenly embraced the man of her dreams out of nowhere the night before, she might have been asking for a tall order. Thankfully, the next day was not awkward at all. In fact, it was really pleasant. Naruto was cheerful, and even the short boat ride from the coastal town they reached later that morning to Genbu was enjoyable. The giant turtle was not able to reach the shallower parts of the beach, so the boat was necessary for them to reach it. As the spiky shell of the island turtle drew closer and closer, Kuratsuchi let the reality of what was to come set in. She would need to face her worst enemy, herself. It was not a pleasant realization. She did not really know what to expect, partially because of Naruto's vague description and the fact that humans always found it difficult to understand themselves. Kuratsuchi had gone through the typical exploration of herself in her teens, but there was still so much to discover. Considering she had to literally confront herself in front of a waterfall, the whole ordeal seemed a tad ludicrous. Kuratsuchi was not sure what the result of the confrontation would be either. The result was the most terrifying part to her. Even if she managed to conquer her psyche and take full control again, it did not necessarily mean a positive result would ensue. She could still be hesitant and tied down by her doubts. She may realize the shadow's presence did not even matter, and nothing she wanted to grow would advance whatsoever. It could all be futile, and there would be nothing anyone could do about it. Or not, she thought. Despite her worries and fear, that thought was a cool stream washing through her arid desert of doubts. It could all work out, and everything would be better because she stood before herself. Taking control and overcoming her doubts had to result in something positive. Otherwise people would not do it, right? Her pessimism was not going to better the situation, and she needed to know that. When Naruto had neared her and leaned against the ship's railing, her stream became a rushing river. The man's presence exuded positivity. After all, Naruto bent his tall frame and stared ahead at the island turtle. Huge colonies of algae stuck to the sides of the enormous shell, and the ocean water submitted to the great form pushing slowly through it. Naruto could feel the joy of seeing the familiar place swell in him. He wanted to see Moto and the giant animals of the island again. He had spent a good deal of time there before and during the beginning of the war. He hoped Kuratsuchi and Mitsui would enjoy the island's wonders as much as he had. Of course, the giant shell was not too welcoming at first sight. Naruto's worries melted when Mitsui met him against the railing. Her small, icy eyes bugged out as she grew excited at seeing the gigantic animal. "That's where we'll be staying, Nara and I." Naruto picked up the little girl and allowed her to sit on his broad shoulders. "You bet. You don't think it seems scary, though?" Mitsui shook her head and leaned forward to put the majority of her weight on Naruto's head. "Nope. It looks like fun." Naruto beamed at the comment. The child was brave and relished the premonitions of adventure when they were on the horizon. She was just like him as a kid. "Good to hear, little one." Naruto looked over to Kuratsuchi, who was studying the nearing island silently. "What about you, Kuratsuchi?" Kuratsuchi's jaw was lax, but her eyes seemed focused. "It looks a little foreboding, don't you think?" Naruto grinned at that. "That's what I thought at first glance too, but I promise that it's a great place. Besides, we won't be here too long. A month or two, maybe. We can move on from there." There was a pause between them for a moment. "We can go to the falls whenever you want. Could we try to go there tonight?" Her question was sudden and unexpected for both of them. So soon? Naruto did not think that was the best idea. Kuratsuchi needed the proper time to mentally prepare. As much as Naruto's experience with the falls turned out to be crucial to his development, it had also been considerably weak in comparison to most. The slivers of negativity that had manifested when he had stood before the falls had not taken him too long to overcome. They had been potent, of course, but in comparison to Kuratsuchi's current issues, they were minuscule. Naruto knew it would take some time for the experience to run its course. He had planned for it to take a few weeks if he was honest. They had time, and they did not need to rush. However, Kuratsuchi's resolve was evident. "Yes, I'm ready." Naruto was still hesitant. "I believe you, it's just," Kuratsuchi interjected. "If you do, then trust me too. I want to start this. I need to start this." Naruto. When he saw the determination within the fire of her eyes, Naruto knew there was no point in arguing. The young woman had a certain steadfastness to her opinions, and did not like to budge on them. Naruto was glad he had noticed the quality about her recently because he could relate. Damn, it was attractive. Mitsui was mesmerized by the splendor of the island when she first set foot on it. She was so captivated by it that Naruto had to hold her hand to keep her from running off by herself. Moto greeted all of them when they arrived and received a large hug from Killer Bee within the first few seconds of seeing each other. Moto welcomed Naruto and was introduced to Kuratsuchi. "Yes, I remember you," Moto said when first meeting the Kunoichi. "You helped us escort Genbu during the war. I'm sorry that we had to become reacquainted under such unfortunate circumstances." Kuratsuchi waved her hand and bowed gently. "It's quite all right. Thank you for letting us stay here." It was Moto's turn to wave off the civilities. "The pleasure is all mine. I would do anything for Bee and Naruto, after all. Please, let me escort you to your accommodations." They were taken to Killer Bee's second home on the island that was also used by the Kumonin that were stationed there. Kuratsuchi held in a chuckle when she saw the giant head fastened above the front door that was made in the likeness of Gyuki, the Hachibi. Once inside, everyone split apart to find their separate rooms. Killer Bee said he was exhausted and retired to his private chambers. The rooms were Spartan-like in terms of furnishing, but tidy and cozy. Mitsui and Kuratsuchi unpacked their belongings and set up their room. After a few minutes, Naruto and Moto knocked on their door. Moto was the one to speak when Kuratsuchi opened the door. "Naruto tells me that you require the use of the Falls of Truth?" Kuratsuchi looked over at Naruto before she answered. His face was surprisingly neutral for the most part except for his eyes. They exuded concern. Kuratsuchi fixed her attention on Moto. "Yes, I do. Could we visit it tonight?" Moto's lips thinned slightly. Yes, but I hope that you know what you're getting into. I've seen many shinobi become insane and fall short of themselves before the falls. The depth of the human mind should not be underestimated. It would be wise to approach this ordeal with extreme caution. With that, Moat turned to lead them towards their destination. Kuratsuchi and the rest followed. As they ambled across the short distance towards the falls, Kuratsuchi spoke softly to Naruto. I'm going to be alright. Naruto's eyes darted over to her, and his lips curved slightly. I know. I just wish that you didn't need to do this whole thing. You don't deserve all of this. Kuratsuchi sighed and stared straight ahead of her. We rarely do, right? At least, it's easy to feel that way. I don't like to think it's all circumstantial. It's mostly our own fault. Our imperfections tend to ruin the joy of life. But we don't like to blame ourselves, and instead we focus on the faults of others or some natural event that no man can control. It's rather sad, isn't it? Naruto dug his hands into his pant pockets. Yeah, it is. I guess you're right. Well, let's hope we can fix it then. Kuratsuchi steeled her resolve. I'm planning on it. When she first saw the falls, Kuratsuchi thought it was the perfect example of what a waterfall should be. The pool it fed into was large yet notably calm. There was a small platform of land in the center of the pool, and Kuratsuchi enjoyed the convenience. Motu gestured towards the natural platform. Whenever you're ready, my dear, just go, sit, and meditate on the falls. It will do the rest. Kuratsuchi thanked the Kumonin and stepped towards the pool. Before she took another, Naruto grabbed her hand. Remember, you're facing yourself, the only person that knows how to truly break you. Be careful. Kuratsuchi bit her lip and nodded. Her hand felt colder when Naruto released it. She walked across the surface of the water and sat on the grassy platform. From across the pool, Mitsui whispered in Naruto's ear. Is Kurone going to be okay? Naruto felt his jaw tense. I hope so, little one. Kuratsuchi took a moment to admire the natural beauty in front of her. There was a cool, white mist that floated from the waterfall and brushed through her hair. There was a strong power around her. The atmosphere was dense with it. There had been many that had come before her to experience what she was about to, some far more skilled than her, and some far lesser. She felt honored and terrified at the same time. Finally, after letting the sweet air slow her heartbeat, and the rhythm of the falling water was a melody, Kuratsuchi closed her eyes. Kuratsuchi was not sure if she opened her eyes a few moments later or if they were still closed. The sensation of opening them and the visions she saw next were not similar to how they usually were. It was a new experience that she could not pinpoint as to what it felt like. It was like a dream, but much more real, a vivid picture of what reality should be like, but was not because of the imperfections of humanity and nature. Colors popped out as if everything was some fantastic painting filled with dyes and hues no human could directly identify. Every sound was as precise and sublime as if it all was emitting from her own body. The cool mist had extended completely, and covered the air all around her. She surmised she was in the mindscape the falls had created for her. For a time, there was nothing but the mist, the waterfall, and Kuratsuchi. Suddenly, the sound of the waterfall changed, at least, she thought it changed. Maybe it had always sounded like that, and she had only imagined a different rhythm. She tried to focus on the sound, but then she felt something. It was like a part of her was being drawn out and a long, thin shade extended out of her body. She saw it creep in front of her, and climb towards the sound of the water. It slid across the surface of the water as if it was a snake. When it reached the falls, it broke from Kuratsuchi's essence with a subtle snap and raced the rest of itself into the waterfall. The mist opened up and Kuratsuchi could see the waterfall clearly. The water was pure and blue, like eyes she loved. The purity was ruined by the shadow, however. It stood behind the waterfall and Kuratsuchi was not sure if it was going to move or not. She knew it could before she saw it because she felt the cold creep in. It slithered through her heart long before her eyes could capture it. The shadow became a figure when it stepped through the falls. The hair was dampened and flat with the moisture, but except for that, Kuratsuchi felt like she was looking in a mirror. The shadow was her. It had always been, of course. The mist was no longer cool. The mist now felt like iron bars that closed her off from the rest of the world. She did not notice it at first, but the darker form's irises were not pink like hers. They were red and its scale were black. It was wearing the same exact clothes as her, and when it spoke, it was the exact same voice. The mist practically tightened at the icy sound. It's about fucking time, the shadow said. Kuratsuchi could feel her blood tighten like the mist. You're a stubborn one, aren't you? Kuratsuchi's mouth hung open slightly as she tried to process what was happening. Her darker side was amused. Its smile could not have been her own. Are you going to say anything? Shit, would you speak up? Kuratsuchi gritted her teeth and stood up. She felt old anger boil in her, and it was time to let it out. What do you want from me? Why won't you leave me alone? The shade scoffed and crossed its arms. I don't think you get it. How can I leave myself alone? We're not separate beings, you bitch. The falls just make it seem that way. Kuratsuchi shook her head frantically. She had planned to be calm no matter what, but the reality of her mind was far beyond her imagination. You can't be me. I don't smile like that. The shadow's grin grew. I wish it was. It would look far better. Although, it wouldn't really matter anyway. Kuratsuchi narrowed her eyes. What's that supposed to mean? The shadow suddenly looked bored by that question. It scoffed again to indicate its irritation. It doesn't matter what your smile looks like. The world will just fuck you like it always does, regardless. Kuratsuchi balled her fists. What kind of thinking is that? The world is not that bad. The shadow liked that comment. Its grin became grotesque and it took a step closer. It's not, eh? A world where millions of people died because of fucked up reasons isn't bad. A world where shinobi that only care about their countries and families have to kill other shinobi that care about the same thing isn't bad. A world where a damn hero can seem to magically fix everything while shit still happens isn't bad. A world where an innocent little girl gets raped and commits suicide isn't bad. The next question drilled into Kuratsuchi's core and made the warmth vanish. A world where he doesn't love you isn't bad. Kuratsuchi felt a snap in the air and she charged forward. She sent chakra into her fist and launched it at the shade's face. She felt the shadow's knuckles meet her own and exchange the same force, canceling both attacks. Kuratsuchi's darker side leaned forward and whispered, "Can you really attack yourself?" Kuratsuchi threw another punch and another after that. Each time she threw one, it was met with the exact same punch. Even when she kicked, it was the same. Every time she attacked it, she questioned why she was not stopping. It was pointless to attack herself, but she did not care. She knew the shadow was right because she would not lie to herself. This is fun, huh? The shadow cackled as Kuratsuchi tried to aim for its stomach only for a hand to meet it. A fight that goes nowhere is always my favorite. Finally, Kuratsuchi stopped swinging and fell to her knees. The mist clung to her skin and dampened her face. The moisture helped when the tears came. Why? Why are you here? You didn't always exist, so why did you come? The shade lowered itself and sat on the water in front of her. Well, the truth is that I've always existed. It's just that I was fully manifested when you finally realized the meaninglessness of life. You mean when the girl died? The memory made the tears freeze on her face. Exactly. Reality was finally shown to you in that exquisite moment. The truth. Life is fucked up and there's no point to it. Your hesitation and doubts are a wonderful testament to that. Kuratsuchi did not understand. She had found meaning. She must have because she could smile and enjoy life with Naruto and Mitsui. You're wrong. You don't really believe that. The shadow grinned and played with a lock of its ebony hair. Yes, I do. Kuratsuchi tried to stop the tears, but they felt heavier when her doubts were weighed in. If you did, then I wouldn't exist, dumbass. I'm you. Kuratsuchi's eyes widened as she finally let the revelation sink in. She was literally arguing with herself, and it was not going anywhere. The shadow was the embodiment of her negativity and hate. It was not simply going to disappear because she willed it to. It was a part of her, and she had to cope with that. She needed to conquer it without trying to eradicate it. The only way to do that was to understand it. Kuratsuchi fastened her attention to the darkness in the shade's eyes. Okay, you are me. So, why do you exist? The shade smirked and nodded. Wonderful. It's simple. I exist to make sure you understand the true nature of the world. And what's that? The shadow rolled its eyes and frowned. Haven't I spelled it out for you? The world is full of pain and suffering and there's no fucking meaning to any of it. You can just go on living life experiencing more and more pain only for it to result in nothing. Those moments of happiness you enjoy so much are only times where you forget that. They are mere illusions to the harsh reality of the world. Life is shit and pain is shit. All of it is shit. Kuratsuchi shook her head and held it in one hand. She squeezed her damp hair and tried to understand what the shadow meant. That can't be true. If there is no meaning, then why do we all exist? The shade actually laughed at that. Its laugh was hers, but it carried a much harsher and sharper tone. The sound of it froze her blood. I wish I knew. I've been trying to figure that out myself, but what does it matter? It's pointless to think, after all. That's circular reasoning. Damn, you're naive. Of course it is. But you believe it too because remember, you're me. Kuratsuchi was desperately trying to not get confused by the absurdity of the situation. There was no point in debating with herself because it was not working. She could not fight it either, so what could she do? She decided on to keep listening. She supposed the answer would come eventually. Why does all of this sound new to me? The smirk did not leave the shadow's mug. It probably sounds that way because you never heard it before, dumbass. You only thought about all of this before, but even then, your thoughts were meager and pitiful with no substance to them. I'm here to drill these wonderful concepts into your pretty, little head. The shade poked her head roughly. Kuratsuchi rubbed the sore spot on her head and scowled at the shadow. No, you're here because I chose to come and see you. My life is determined by my choices. The shade leaned in close. Kuratsuchi could see the red in its eyes flare in excitement. It loved every second of this, and that fact increased the rage in Kuratsuchi's chest. Then why did you choose to let her kill herself? You let that Junko girl die even though you could have done something. You could have easily saved her, but you didn't. You chose to hesitate. That's the reality of it. Kuratsuchi felt her chest get heavy and the anger burn away. It was replaced with confusion and regret. The shadow was right and there was no use in denying it. The shadow was not following logic because she was not either. Even if she tried to use reason, the shade did not care. Negativity and doubt rarely used such things. It relied on cynicism and emotion. Kuratsuchi wondered if she would ever get anywhere with it. The question she had asked originally was suddenly brought to the surface. What do you want then? The shadow's whisper was a knife that tore into the chest and made it bleed. The shade's eyes were alive and burning. There was no point in saying they were not. There was just no point. Release, the shadow whispered into the mist. All of a sudden, Kuratsuchi's eyes opened and the waterfall's original rhythm was back. Kuratsuchi turned her head quickly and saw everybody standing behind her. Naruto ran forward and his face was brimming with worry. She questioned if the whole thing had actually happened as Naruto's figure drew closer. Kuratsuchi realized it did happen when she felt the dried tears on her face become fresh again. She wept into Naruto's arms when he reached her. When the others came around to console her and told her it was going to be all right, she wept then too. The blanket was warm and the room was comfortable. Kuratsuchi was thankful for that. Mitsui's sleeping form was next to her, and the chair in front of them was occupied by the war hero. Naruto said he would watch her until she fell asleep, but the kunoichi did not feel like sleeping yet. Kuratsuchi's mind was full with dark secrets and dark discoveries. She had already told Naruto about the conversation she had with the shadow. Naturally, she carefully left out the part about him. The gentle rhythm of Mitsui's breathing was covered by Naruto's soft chuckle. You know, I'm kind of glad that you tried to fight it too. I don't feel as stupid knowing that you tried the same thing I did. Kuratsuchi did not laugh with him. Her eyes flickered up and stared at him. Will I ever be able to defeat it, Naruto? Naruto's expression softened and he looked down at the ground. I'm not sure, Kuratsuchi. I think so. It will take some time though. Kuratsuchi buried her face into the blanket. She tried to keep her voice low for the sake of Mitsui. I don't want to go back in there, Naruto. It was so horrible. It hurts so much. I know. I know it hurts. Naruto smiled as he said that. Kuratsuchi peeked up from the blanket. It was the smile too. It was the same smile he showed back in Taki. The smile that haunted her dreams. The shadow loved that smile. She could feel it slither through her and caress her. It felt terrible. But that's okay, you know? The shadow stopped with that and Kuratsuchi focused on Naruto. His eyes were low and he was biting his lower lip in thought. I'm glad there is something so important to me in this world that can make me feel such pain. Because of that pain, I can love others. Kuratsuchi had not thought of that. She could feel the shadow cower, and she felt stronger for it. Is there meaning in pain then? Naruto gazed at her, and his chair squeaked as he leaned forward. A strand of hair fell over his eye. Yes, there must be. I feel the value of the pain every time I mention it to someone who has lost someone. I feel the meaning when a child cries and I tell them it will be all right. Naruto's eyes were bright as he spoke and Kuratsuchi was engrossed by them. I feel the meaning whenever others express themselves and become vulnerable with the pain. It must be necessary. You said your darker form told you it was all pointless. There's a side of me that feels the same way, but when I remember those in my life who have felt pain and grew from it, it becomes silent. Kuratsuchi thought about those words. Do you think if I say that next time, it will listen? Naruto shrugged and narrowed his eyes. Maybe. Everyone's experience with the falls is different. I can't really give you too much advice about what to say because I don't know you like you do, Kuratsuchi sighed. She did not like that answer but knew it was true. I just wanted to go away, Naruto. Naruto shook his head and brought up a finger to indicate his point. That's different. That's the wrong kind of thinking. You can't make a part of yourself disappear. You need to accept what it is without it controlling you. It sounds like you were trying to understand it, but it didn't seem like it was working, correct? Kuratsuchi could not help but smile a little. I thought you said you couldn't give me advice. Naruto mirrored the smile. Well, I'm pretty good at finding something to talk about. Just keep trying to figure it out, okay? It wants to make itself known to you. It will tell you everything if you let it. You just need to persevere, Kuratsuchi. I promise that you will overcome it if you don't give up. Kuratsuchi wrapped the blanket tighter around herself. Naruto's words were peaceful and true. They were even more comfortable than the blanket. You're pretty good at not giving up, right, hero? That comment earned her a dazzling grin from the blonde. It is my Nindo, after all. I won't run away and I keep my promises. I sure have spat out those words pretty often in my life. I like to think they carry more clout to them each time I say them, but Naruto stopped talking when he saw that Kuratsuchi had fallen asleep. He mentally kicked himself for rambling on again. He got out of his chair and tucked her in next to Mitsui. He allowed himself a moment to savor the tender sight of the two of them. He loved each of them so much and never wanted any harm to ever come to them. He would protect them always. It hurt him to see Kuratsuchi go through such an ordeal, but he knew she could do it. She was strong and he loved that about her. Right before Naruto turned off the lights and left the room, he noticed a careful smile on Kuratsuchi's face. It was a beautiful smile that he would probably dream about later. He decided he would protect that too. Chapter 17, A Rhythmic Approach. The noise of the waterfall was a song to her now. It probably always had been, but she had not fully realized it until now. It had been a simple melody, at first, but now it was a symphony that carried her through the worries. She found some comfort in it, and tried to prepare herself for another encounter with her darker self. She had to change her thinking when concerning the shadow. It was the only choice she could make now. Moto had escorted her back to the falls that morning, and she had not wakened Naruto before she had left the house. It was not because of his concern or her inability to communicate, but about her direct intentions. She wanted to confront the shadow of her own accord, and that did not necessarily always include Naruto. She closed her eyes and allowed the falls to take her again. She loathed what was to come, but she needed to understand herself properly. This was beyond her mere development as a person. It was also for her very view of life. She had to understand it all. She allowed the mist take her away. The familiar sensation of walking in a vivid picture embraced her once again, and the shadow was in front of her. Her darker eyes met Kuratsuchi's lighter ones. The contrast seemed adequate. The shadow folded her arms, and she grinned grotesquely at seeing the calm demeanor on Kuratsuchi. Look at you! You seem so relaxed and shit. I'm impressed by your tenacity, dumbass. Kuratsuchi was not amused by the simple banter. She kept her face as neutral as possible. Although, the cold shiver that ran through her spine was making that exceedingly difficult. Well, I've realized that it's best not to get worked up about you. The shadow gave an exaggerated shrug and smirked. We'll see how long that lasts. I know how to push your buttons, after all. Kuratsuchi frowned slightly. I don't doubt that one bit. The shade's eyes widened and she let out a loud laugh. That's good. I like that. Let's talk about doubts then. It seems we have a lot of them, don't we? Kuratsuchi remained seated on the grassy hill in the center of the pool. She needed to take Naruto's advice and let the shadow talk. Yes, it would seem so. The shadow scoffed and played with her fingers to indicate her point. I mean, there's a shit pile of doubts that you have, you know. You doubt your abilities to protect those you love. You doubt that you will be able to become the Tsukage. You doubt if your future will be prosperous. You even fucking doubt that the little girl loves you. That one stung so much that Kuratsuchi winced. Don't talk about Mitsui. Her voice was far louder than she intended for it to be. Ooh. It's sure easy to get you to react. Maybe your tenacity wasn't as impressive as I had thought. How disappointing. The shadow's tone was mocking and dripping with sarcasm. Honestly, your shit is so easy to throw out. The shadow leaned in closer and lowered her voice. But I think my favorite doubts of yours are the ones concerning him. The mist was so chilly then and clung to Kuratsuchi's porcelain skin, making it seem tight and fake. It covered her like a thin oil that reminded her of plastic. She felt her throat turn dry and she knew there was no use denying the binding proclamation. Can we not talk about him, please? The shade ignored her as she strolled around her with a gleeful skip in her step. I mean seriously. Not only do you doubt his love for you, but you even doubt your feelings for him. Fuck, you're so hopeless. Her chilled laughter was laced with malevolence. Kuratsuchi felt her teeth grate against each other, and her palms squeak with pressure as she balled it. Insulting me isn't going to advance this conversation. I think it would be best for both of us if we keep it respectful. The shadow expressed mock concern by raising her pitch and bringing a hand to her mouth. The whole expression seemed oily like the mist. Oh dear. I didn't mean to be so crass. We should be more respectful. She quickly brought her pitch down and the sarcasm disappeared. Maybe if you weren't so fucking pathetic, this whole thing would be far easier. She was not going to let it snap. Kuratsuchi held herself together by a blonde thread that was far more resilient than either party had anticipated. The shadow scanned Kuratsuchi and wondered if the thread was breakable at all. Why do you think I doubt my love for Naruto? Kuratsuchi asked. The shadow kept her face stoic and sat on the surface of the pool. She laid her head in one of her hands and searched Kuratsuchi's features for something that was not there. Because I do, dumbass. He doesn't love us, and we don't love him. How can love exist when there is no meaning in the world? Love is an illusion that stops humans from fully embracing reality. Kuratsuchi let herself slip a bit. That's not a definition of love. It's just a personal take on a characteristic of it, which is wrong, by the way. The shadow snickered and shook her head as if it was all a joke to her. Glad to hear that we disagree with each other. I'm sure that's healthy. All right, then what would you define love as? Kuratsuchi had never really thought about the definition. She had assumed it was a given. An emotional attachment to an individual? The shade scoffed again. That assumes a world with meaning, of course. Even if it did, would you really base the world around something so temporary? Kuratsuchi raised her eyebrows. She had not realized that. Emotion was temporary, and that would assume love was fickle and not everlasting like it should have been. Was that not the definition of love then? Kuratsuchi was uncertain. I guess. The shadow rolled her eyes. Oh, wonderful. You're hesitant. Makes my job easier, I guess. Reality is an illusion, okay? Everything just distracts you from the truth, so why should we even bother questioning anything? Your reality is fucked up. Kuratsuchi paused to think on her next addition. And inconsistent. The shade grinned devilishly. Correction, our reality is fucked up. Her grin got wider and more sinister. And inconsistent. The thread snapped and Kuratsuchi could feel herself falling into the rage. It was the warmest thing around and she clung to it with desperation. It was too cold everywhere else. No! No! Naruto cares for me. He said so himself and I care about him too. I love him. He and Mitsuki are the only things that give my life meaning. The shadow twirled a lock of hair in her finger. Well, that narrows things down at least. I just have to convince you that they don't mean anything and then you'll see, huh? Kuratsuchi cursed herself for falling in her steps. Perhaps it was wrong to hold back because she was speaking to her own self, after all. She hated this scenario so much. It was hurting her beyond words. But there had to be some merit in this conversation, some kind of meaning. She had to find it, otherwise mania would come and take her away from him. No! There is meaning in this world. Whenever a sun rises, or a star shines, or a girl confesses her love, there is meaning in all of that. The shadow's eyes flickered and she licked the front of her teeth. Then why am I still here? I certainly don't believe that, which means neither do you. See how that works? I love him, damn it! Kuratsuchi was screaming now and her throat hurt but not as much as her chest did. It was not fair she could not convince herself of her love. She should have taken a break from this and waited to speak to her darker side, but she had to make some progress. She had to obtain some kind of new information that could help her. This was becoming increasingly difficult to manage and her emotions were getting the better of her. I have to love him, alright? Let's explore this love shit some more then. What do you think love is? The shade seemed focused now, but her smirk was sticking around. Kuratsuchi thought about it again for a second. If it was not something temporary, then it must have been something permanent. It had to be based around the goal of life then. Although, she was uncertain of what that was exactly. But she was certain about how she viewed those she loved. She thought about her view of Naruto and Mitsui. She was giving them something when she loved them. Kuratsuchi smiled a little when she found the answer. The basis of all love is to want what is best for someone, she said with a sliver of confidence. There isn't a type of love that doesn't have at least that. The shadow nodded and gave an exaggerated sigh. Fucking finally! Something we can agree on. Okay, if that's what love means, then what is best for all people? What is the goal of life? Kuratsuchi tried to search her mind for the answer, but she was having trouble. She had to get more basic, but that meant she had to come closer to her own ignorance. Her pride was becoming more and more bruised. I'm not sure. The shadow gestured with her hands for emphasis by holding up her palm. I'll help you out then, dumbass. What's best for all people is to find their release from the constant search of meaning in life. Kuratsuchi immediately shook her head and scowled at the nonsense. No, it must be the search itself. Even if someone can't find it, at least they are searching for it. That in itself gives someone meaning in their life. The shade's grin was massive and grotesque. Is it now? That doesn't sound like a goal at all. A goal needs to have a fucking end to it. Fine. Then the goal is love. Wanting the very best for someone is the goal. Kuratsuchi knew that was not the most basic thing, but it was all she had. Then do you love yourself? Kuratsuchi was startled by that. She got her. They both knew the answer, and it was not easy for either of them. It just brought more pain into everything. Kuratsuchi stated the obvious, no, I don't. Then how can you love Naruto? Kuratsuchi was outraged. I don't know, okay. I don't fucking know, and it tears me up inside knowing that I can't find an answer. I want to love him and myself, but I don't fucking know how. The shadow was not smiling anymore. It was almost unnerving to see the darker form have a serious expression for once. Maybe she was feeling Kuratsuchi's emotion and being empathetic for once. Maybe she was just surprised. No one there knew for sure, even the shadow. Then release yourself in him. Release yourselves from this world. What the fuck does that mean? I hate this. Your questions and statements are so mean and they rip into me. The shade glowered and bared her teeth. Good. That means I'm getting through to you. Naruto doesn't actually care about us, and it'll be easier for both of us when you realize that. Kuratsuchi hated to admit it, but she was becoming convinced by the shade. Her darker self was sounding more and more right every second. The meaninglessness and the absence of love was making sense. But could matters make sense without meaning? Could points be made without reason? Logic was not going to work though, Kuratsuchi surmised with dismay. She was not in some debate with politicians this time. She was facing herself. Reason could not help her completely here. Suddenly, the thread came back and wrapped around her. Naruto's words resonated within her. But he does care. He's never shown us anything that proves otherwise. He has proven that he cares. The shadow was staring past her into the mist. How can something be proven without meaning? Isn't that what you're trying to do? The shade's smirk came back. Then why am I winning? She could not argue that. But she could use Naruto. He was the center of it all. You were there, weren't you? Naruto has found life in his pain. He sees the truth around him and has used it to propel himself into his bright future. A future that I want to be a part of. The shadow's eyes dulled a bit. Then why haven't you told him all that yet? Instead, you hold in your desires and make him work for you. He said that we were nothing more than a friend to him. You've lied to him, and you still do. Maybe I would believe you if you fucking acted on your beliefs for once. Damn, you're hopeless. It's because I'm scared, okay? I don't want to hear his rejection, and I know you don't want either. The shadow held up her arms for a moment of praise. Thank God. The truth has been revealed. Shit, you're fucking slower than this giant-ass turtle. We both know that he would reject us. He doesn't care about us, and he never will. Only I care, Kuratsuchi. I'm the only one who can bring you release. Oh, you've done a fantastic job of showing that, haven't you? You've fucking killed it, really. Your insults are really helping me at feeling loved. Kuratsuchi wanted to throw another punch so badly, but she held it in. It was futile to act in violence. The shadow brought up her hands in defense. Now, no need for sarcasm. Kuratsuchi scoffed at the absurdity. You use sarcasm all the time, you hypocrite. The shade shrugged again. We're full of contradictions. We are both hypocrites, at least I'm the one willing to admit it. I hate you! It was all emotion now. The rage filled Kuratsuchi, and she cherished the warmth it gave her. She craved it so badly, and it was not helping. It was so pathetic. I hate you and your constant insults. I can't stand the way you dismiss me so easily. The shade played with the cool water under her. She brought up her hand to catch the water, only for it to slip through her fingers. Water was so weird. So you hate yourself. Tell me something that I don't know. Kuratsuchi felt the moment stir around her. Her face felt hot with anger. The air was freezing and the mist floated above. It spread its essence beyond her vision and told the world that it mattered. It carried something intangible with it. The mist could not be underestimated because it had meaning within itself. It simply existed and did its part. It held the value in life, and that was something Kuratsuchi wanted more than anything. But the mist was so cold, and so was the world. She did not want to be cold anymore. Despite this, she took a deep breath and allowed the mist to cool her down. I don't hate Naruto, though. You're right about not being able to love him, but I know I don't hate him. The shadow sighed and nodded at that. Yes, I know. I don't hate him either. Kuratsuchi's eyes widened and she saw something to hold on to. The thread was strong and she grasped it tightly. Okay, so we don't hate him. We don't hate him because he wants to help us. He wants what is best for us. He has the basis for love, doesn't he? The shade scratched her cheek and leaned back with her hands behind her. Perhaps. He might have the basis for it, but that doesn't mean he loves us the way we want him to. Maybe so, but maybe we could make him love us. Maybe we could try to find that love and that would bring us meaning. I want it and you must want it too, right? The shadow gave a deadpan look that spoke only of cruelty. No, I don't. That search would be fucking pointless, and it would only bring more pain in the end, just more meaninglessness. Kuratsuchi began to cry then. It was not like before though. These tears were from empathy. Why do you hate so much? Why do you go on with your negativity and accept these feelings of animosity? The shadow might have cracked a little there. An intangible line passed through her eyes when the question lingered. At least, the line might have been there. The mist was as uncertain about it as Kuratsuchi was. The shade may have felt some emotion other than what she was used to. Kuratsuchi could only hope, though. Because it's all I have, that's why I want release. I might have more then. The shade's expression revealed nothing when she said that. She was becoming a little more open with her and Kuratsuchi was grateful. Naruto can give us more though. He's shown us that he can. Kuratsuchi was hoping he might be able to reach both her and the shadow. He was the subject that seemed to bring the most out of them, anyways. He could do it, even if Kuratsuchi could not. The shade shook her head and splashed some water. Would you stop putting all of your trust and worth into one person? It's unhealthy, you know. Shit, this isn't some kind of romance where all you need is that one person to love you. Life doesn't fucking work like that. You can't find your self-worth and meaning in people. They're too imperfect and their damn flaws will only bring destruction. Are you seriously too fucking stupid to not notice that? Kuratsuchi mulled over that. That was probably true. Despite the shadow's cynicism and hate, she was right about certain things. But Naruto was still important, and she needed to utilize that correctly. Then what part does he play in all of this? He may not mean everything, but he could show us something that we don't know yet. Maybe we've been assuming too much by pretending like we know everything. Naruto might have something worthy of knowing about. Hell, maybe even Mitsui knows something we don't. We don't know it all, but maybe Naruto knows more. He's not going to fix everything, but he could change everything. The shadow gave a look of disapproval, but Kuratsuchi guessed it was a farce. Turns out, she was right. I still think you're putting too much on him. I probably am, but the guy did save the entire world once. Don't you think he deserves our trust? The shadow narrowed her eyes and made them shaped like slits of dark portals. The red in them was hot in color but penetrated into Kuratsuchi's soul like icicles. She felt so transparent being in front of herself. She guessed that made sense by the shade's own accord. The shadow's tone was level when she spoke again. To be honest, he probably deserves more than that. I couldn't agree more. He's a remarkable person, isn't he? Kuratsuchi felt it then. Her true affection for the blonde Jinchuriki must have been strong enough to compare to the shadow's view of him. If it was not, then maybe it was not worth having in the first place. The shade let herself be convinced. Her expression poured out some relief and defeat. Despite everything she had thought before, Kuratsuchi saw something else in the shadow that time. Something that did not have to do with negativity. It was beautiful. Yes, he is. Fine. We'll hear what he has to say. The smile the shadow gave was uncharacteristically pleasant. Shit, I slipped a little bit. Kuratsuchi's smile was tender. We're both pretty good at that, it seems. The shadow caught herself and scoffed immediately. The nice moment was gone and the shadow was back to her usual self. But she was suddenly deeper than Kuratsuchi realized. The kunoichi wondered if that was good for her or the shadow. Probably both, she mused. Whatever. Just go, for fuck's sake. With that, The song changed and Kuratsuchi was brought back to reality. She opened her eyes and saw the cerulean screen of water before her. There were no shadows lurking behind it, and she wondered if that was true for most things. She could only hope, after all. It seemed hope was the only thing on her side. Mitsui laughed exuberantly as she fell upon the gorilla's enormous belly. She giggled uncontrollably and ran up the tree again to go another round. She jumped from the branches and fell another time on the primate's stomach. The gorilla did not seem to mind as it stared up at the clouds in a dozy manner. Mitsui turned to look over at Killer Bee's sleeping form. Earlier that morning, she asked the dark-skinned man if she could play with the animals. He had escorted her over to them only for the Jinchuriki to fall asleep on her as soon as they had gotten there. Mitsui had wanted to go with Naruto and Kuratsuchi, but they were both gone that morning. She realized she would probably see them eventually, and did not really worry about it. Mitsui was about to climb the tree another time when she suddenly heard a presence near her. She turned around and felt immediate exhilaration. Kurone! Mitsui ran over to her as fast as her little legs could take her. The kunoichi smiled and knelt down to embrace the little girl. "Good morning, my dear," the child giggled. "No, silly. It's not the morning anymore. It's past noon." Kuratsuchi's eyes showed absent-mindedness and were rather flat in color. "So it is." Kuratsuchi gazed over at a sleeping Killer Bee for a moment. "Would you like to take a walk with me, little one?" Mitsui grinned at the idea and grabbed Kuratsuchi's hand. "Sounds fun, Kurone." The two girls found a nice path surrounded by exotic flora that seemed pleasant enough. With no real destination in mind, a casual and leisurely pace was set between the two of them. Kuratsuchi liked the scent of the moving island. It was strange and unusual, but carried a unique fragrance that brought relief to the dark-haired beauty. It made her think of questions left unanswered. She wanted to talk to Naruto, but seeing Mitsui made her think it was best to inquire of the little girl for now. She may have been young, but the child packed a lot more wisdom than one might think. Kuratsuchi squeezed Mitsui's hand gently. "Sweetheart, what do you think meaning is?" Mitsui seemed a little put off by that cryptic question. She puffed her cheeks out a bit to think about it. Kuratsuchi thought she looked adorable. "Meaning? Isn't it why we do things?" Kuratsuchi was surprised by the girl's high-level thinking. She was truly beyond her years. "It can be. I guess it's all about the way you look at it. Do you do things because they're meaningful?" The little girl laughed like that was a silly question. "Well, of course. Everything has meaning and that's why I do stuff." The amount of confidence in her declaration made Kuratsuchi stumble in her thinking. Even the shadow was a tad hesitant by that simple answer. "Surely, some things are pointless, Mitsui." The little girl skipped forward and jumped onto a little rock. "Not the important things, Kurone. My parents died with meaning, I think." Kuratsuchi was shocked by that. The girl had said it so casually too. "Sweetie, your parents died because of unfortunate circumstances. They died needlessly. There was no point in that." Perhaps she was being too morbid with a child of 9, but she knew the girl could handle it. Mitsui was stronger than most, and it still surprised Kuratsuchi every now and then. "That's not what I mean, Kurone. I mean their lives had meaning and so did their deaths. They loved me and they died loving me. I know they hated a lot of stuff and were wrong a lot, but they still loved me." "How did you know that, sweetie?" Kuratsuchi wanted to hear the answer. She needed to know how it was so obvious to a little girl. "The same way I know you love me, Kurone, you show it. You protect me and want what is good for me. Naru and I says that is what love is." Kuratsuchi could not believe the simplicity of it all. Here she was, arguing with herself about concepts that bothered humanity for its entire existence, and a little girl explained it so plainly. Of course, there was more to it than that, but the child had a good basis to start with. "I guess you're right, little one. Do you miss your parents?" Mitsui did not seem bothered by all these simple questions, but she did give a quizzical look. "Of course. It hurts a little whenever I think about them. Right here." She pointed to her chest and Kuratsuchi knew she could relate. Damn, she loved this little girl. "Sometimes I cry about them too. They were nice. But I have you and Naruto now, so it's okay." What was Kuratsuchi doing? Did she really think she was the only one with pain? Here was a small orphan girl who missed her parents and Kuratsuchi was being so depressed about her own problems. How could she be so audacious? Despite her understanding of the situation, she could not help but still look inwardly. It was selfish, but she knew the child would not mind. Kuratsuchi sighed and stopped walking. Mitsui stopped too and stared up at her. "I haven't felt Oklahoma in a while, little one." Mitsui creased her brow in concern and hugged her surrogate mother figure. I know, Kurone. But Naruto and I are here to help. Naruto says he will make you okay. Kuratsuchi beamed with affection at the little girl and patted her small head. The chestnut hair was soft to the touch and Mitsui loved it when she did that. Did he now? That sounds wonderful, little one. Naruto is a good boy, isn't he? Yup. Can we go find him? I want to see him, Kurone. I like it when you both are together, like a mommy and daddy. Normally, Kuratsuchi would have blushed and stammered at the very idea of the two of them in that position, but it was just so innocent. The statement was tender, and there was no reason to be flustered about it. Kuratsuchi decided to accept it. All right. Let's go. They found Naruto in a small clearing where he was undergoing an intense training regimen. There was nothing innocent about what Kuratsuchi thought when she saw him. He was only garbed in his black training pants, and his bare chest glistened with perspiration. He looked amazing as he performed another perfect squat. He was holding a boulder above his head that was the size of a small building and was lifting it up with only his lower body. Even from across the clearing, Kuratsuchi could see the strain in his back muscles and she felt her stomach warm up at the sight. Mitsui was clearly unfazed by the scene and ran over to him. Naru and I. You look so cool, Naruto grinned as he saw the child run towards him. With a careful push of his arms, he launched the boulder a few feet away from himself and Mitsui. The heavy boulder's impact distributed an impressive shockwave throughout the clearing and Kuratsuchi almost lost her footing. Mitsui and Naruto seemed fine, however. The blonde rubbed his nose at the praise. Thanks, little one. I used to be able to only lift something this heavy when I was in sage mode, but I've clearly gotten stronger, huh? The war hero's childish arrogance tended to manifest itself every now and then. Kuratsuchi shook her head at his antics as she drew closer. She managed to control her thoughts enough to approach him. As long as she maintained eye contact, the blonde's impressive build would not affect her. That's what she told herself, anyways. Get over yourself, hero. We don't want Mitsui to grow up with a big head. The little girl started feeling her head to see if that was something to worry about when Naruto chuckled. Yeah, we can't have that happening. I've gotten better over the years, though. I swear. Kuratsuchi smirked for a moment, and then looked a bit more serious. I talked with the shadow again earlier this morning. Naruto locked eyes with her, and wiped the sweat from his brow. I figured. How did it go? Better, I think. We reached an agreement of sorts. Mitsui was pulling on Naruto's pants as they talked, begging for her to begin her own training for that day. Naruto raised an eyebrow and retrieved a rock from Mitsui to practice her squats on. He then looked back at Kuratsuchi as the child tried to imitate what he had been doing with her own rock of proportionate weight. What kind of agreement? Naruto asked. An agreement that involves you. Kuratsuchi felt her jaw tighten. Naruto was patient and alert as he listened to Kuratsuchi's brief explanation about her encounter. She concentrated on keeping her eyes fixed to his face. His chest was extremely alluring, after all. The explanation felt tedious with the way she carefully avoided the parts directly involving her feelings about him. She wondered if it was always going to be like this. She kept hearing the Shadow's words about being honest with him, but she was actively trying to ignore them. She could not tell him yet. She just was not ready. After Kuratsuchi was finished, Naruto took the rock away from an exhausted Mitsui. Interesting. I guess the best thing that I can tell you is to remember that it's okay to think about all of this. Everyone has these thoughts of wondering if what happens in this world really matters. Don't think that you're weird or in the wrong for thinking them. Honestly, I'm really glad that you're facing all of this. It's healthy, you know? Kuratsuchi nodded slightly. I see. But I still want to have control of myself. The shadow is still separate from me and unsatisfied. I know that not everyone has this big of a problem about it. Most people have either decided on whether to accept it or not. I'm still so uncertain though. Naruto crossed his arms and tilted his head. That's okay too. You'll figure it out eventually. Just don't beat yourself up too much. Kuratsuchi's voice was raised and Mitsui looked over at her with deep concern. But I'm not happy, Naruto. I can't find the joy in life because of this. I want to so bad, but it's so hard when you can't agree with yourself on your view of it all. Naruto's expression was sad, to put it simply. His eyes were lowered and his lips were thin. He understood and hurt for her. You can't be happy all the time, Kuratsuchi. You need to base your life around something more solid and constant than mere happiness. Kuratsuchi's throat felt hot as she spoke louder. Then what, Naruto? What do I base it around? The Shadow's ideals? You and Mitsui? Naruto was silent. Whether it was because he did not have an answer or not, was unclear to all parties present. Mitsui broke the silence. Naru and I didn't mean to make you mad, Kurone. He just wants to help. Kuratsuchi felt immediate guilt. She was yelling for no good reason, and it was upsetting the two people she cared about the most in the world. She did not know where to center her life, and she needed to choose eventually. Her life would not feel stable until then. She suddenly dropped to the ground in a seating position. She let the cool grass underneath her take away her agitation. Nature always seemed to refresh her, and was usually glad to take away her burdens for a little while. She stammered out an apology. Sorry. Naruto sat down in front of her and pushed his long bangs away from his face. Mitsui stood behind him and leaned against his back with her arms wrapped around his neck. It's okay, Kuratsuchi. We understand you're going through a lot. Naruto's lips curved into a bright smile. Kuratsuchi returned the smile with a small one. What do I tell the shadow next time, Naruto? Well, first off, I think you should take a good break before you go back in there. After that, though, I think you should tell her that you want to understand her. It sounds like there is still a lot of hostility between you two, and you need to eliminate that as quickly as possible. Otherwise, it will continue to mar your relationship. Naruto's words were sagely, and Kuratsuchi decided it was best to heed them. But it's so hard to understand her, Naruto. Kuratsuchi was not denying his advice, she was only digging for more of it. Naruto frowned in thought. Well, there's still some confusion. You need to find out what this release she keeps talking about is. I think if you can see her aim goal in all of this, then an answer will present itself. Kuratsuchi nodded and brushed a hand through her longer hair. It was well past her shoulders now, and she liked it like that. Okay, I'll give it a shot. Also, I told her that I would ask you about meaning. Naruto rubbed his chin and closed his eyes. I thought I answered this already, but I guess I wasn't clear enough. Sorry about that. His eyelids opened to reveal the deep orbs behind them. And Kuratsuchi thought the grass had looked refreshing. Boy, had she been wrong. Meaning is held within the lives of the many. I think true meaning is found in the human heart. The Sage of Six Paths had showed me that bonds needed to be created with the basis of the heart. The search to understand that, and the world is what brings meaning. My experience with my friends and those I deemed precious has shown me that my power does not lie within myself, which is rather ironic, considering I left to go on my own for this mission. Naruto's smile was silly in its nature as he had said that. Naruto continued. But I ended up finding you too, so it's okay. Look, I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but knowing people helps figure them out. There's a little bit of truth in everyone. I think understanding people reveals that truth. Every person I've met has shown me their unique selves, and as a result, they've shown me some truth about the world. I think knowing people shows us meaning. All a relationship really means is to know another person and continue to know them. There is so much meaning in that truth. We can find that meaning within each other. Kuratsuchi let that sink in. Naruto could have been right. The human heart was typically categorized as cold and evil, but it did not have to be that way. Even if it was, it did not necessarily mean it held no truth. Whenever humans separated themselves from each other, it was like taking a step away from the truth and meaning of the world. Naruto had shown his bonds with everyone during the war. He did not rely on his own strength but those around him. Even when he defeated Kagaya, he was not alone. He knew being with other people got not only the job done, but also made life worth living. He was a true hero because he did not stand by himself but with those around him. That was why peace had been brought to the world, and he was the child of prophecy. Naruto brought people together. Kuratsuchi flicked her eyes over to Mitsui, who was giving her a large grin. Kuratsuchi finally nodded at Naruto's reasoning. I'll be sure to bring that up with the shadow next time. Thanks, Naruto. My pleasure. Now, come on. Let's all train together. Naruto spun around with his leg muscles and grabbed Mitsui in his arms. He started doing squats with a giggling Mitsui above his head. Naruto began laughing too, and Kuratsuchi joined in as well. She found some joy in that moment. There was a wave of tangibility to it. The mist had shown that to her earlier that day, and she realized what it had been trying to tell her. Life was worth it for those moments that could be held and cherished. The shadow may not have known this, but Kuratsuchi did. Maybe the world was warmer than she had thought. At least, it was with Naruto around.